From the time of our arrival in Aotearoa, Māori have created a unique architectural history. Our structures not only house people, but also our dreams, our fundamental needs, and our histories. So what can we tell about ourselves from these buildings? What do they say to us? It's a question I've asked myself constantly. I'm Ro Hoskins, and as a director of an architectural practice, understanding the stories held within the walls of our buildings has been a lifelong obsession. In this series, we're going to take you on a journey to explore not just our architectural structures, but also the social and cultural histories from which our buildings arise. We'll ask, what is Māori architecture? And celebrate some of our most stunning buildings. In this series, we set out to explore Māori architecture, from where our unique architecture began to the modern triumphs that we see today. Whare Māori are what distinguishes our buildings in New Zealand from others throughout the world. They can't be seen anywhere else on the globe. But it's not just our traditional buildings that are unique. Contemporary designs and buildings that borrow from the past are evolving and becoming more prominent, particularly in the exciting new developments we are seeing in our public places and corporate institutions. For many of us, the most important building project we'll be involved in is the construction of a new marae or whare tupuna. It had been nearly 150 years since a traditional marae had stood on the west coast of the South Island. But in 2005, the long-held dream of the hapu, Kāti Mahaki ki Makawhio, was realised with the opening of a beautiful new marae at Mahitahi or Bruce Bay. Its name, Te Tauraka Waka a Maui, recognises the exploits of Maui on the west coast.
It's been a dream of our people for many, many years and for many generations. To find a place for our people together that was ours. One of the biggest issues we had was the lack of available land in this area, and land that was owned by us. We actually ended up going into negotiations for a piece of Department of Conservation owned land. Once the land was cleared, because this was a big swamp, it was a mining swamp. So once land was cleared, everything just seemed to fall into place. You'll have noted that this is a tilt slab marae, and that was a quite conscious decision because we're so close to the ocean. We had to find materials that would be long-lasting enough to be able to deal with the sea spray, which on some days when the seas are high out here, actually you can feel it hitting the side of the building sometimes.
To realise their long-held dream, the hapu were fortunate that they could draw on the skills of local carver Vane Robinson, who is also of Kāti Mahaki descent.
I think it's every carver's dream to carve a house, but I think more importantly to carve your own whare is quite exceptional.
So being here on Te Tai o Pautini, you were always going to use that amazing resource.
Yeah, it's only appropriate that we use something that's ours, us. You could look at the stone as a workable item, but to us it's about what's within the stone, the inner beauty, the translucencies of the stone, characteristics, keeping it simple, let the stone take over itself and be a major feature within inside the po.
So some beautiful Aotea eyes here.
Quite an amazing stone that's a lot softer than pounamu that we're used to, but nevertheless it's still a pounamu.
The distinctive Aotea stone is only found on the west coast of the South Island. So this is the river that's the source of the Aotea?
It comes out of the valley up in here and works its way down the river.
It's unique to this area. I haven't been there, but our koro here has been right up to the source.
So it was really important to incorporate the Aotea into the whare?
Very much so. Part of the thought of that is that here is the ancient pā area, just out over here. We know that because there's a mound down there where they used to work the pounamu. Sometimes it's difficult to find, it hides itself, other times it booms in like a light. It's not just for jewellery either, it has a very, very healing energy in it. So it's not just in its beauty, but it's in the wairua that's in there as well.
Every hapu have their own local resources to call on, and for Kāti Mahaki, the local pounamu and Aotea stone have given their whare tupuna, kaipo, a distinctive look.
I remember the day that we opened up the whare, of course, as a woman, I didn't know what the carvings looked like. When we came in here, the only thing we saw was the green of the glow of the backlit pounamu, and it was just a big gasp because it was absolutely gorgeous. I'd seen the tukutuku panels because I was really involved in the weaving of those, so I knew what they looked like. But when I actually saw them in the context next to our popo tipuna, it was amazing. There's a mixture of both contemporary, in terms of the plastics that have been used, and also traditional materials. And so we've also used kia, or as we call it down here, gigi. We've used gigi and also pika or pingao.
See, there's a number of female ancestors in here as well as, of course, the male ones.
In terms of our whakapapa links, our hapu name is named after our ancestress, Mahaki Nui. For us, there's a balance between male and female, and that's featured in our whare. There aren't many people my age who get a chance to actually become so intrinsically involved in building a marae and building your own marae. I was quite new to my whakapapa here in South Westland. I knew about my links, but I didn't know the kōrero of my people. If there's one thing that this marae has been great for, is it represents my whakapapa, and so it's helped me to retain all of that kōrero that I would never have known if I hadn't come and worked here. Even now, every time I come back here and come into our whare tipuna and I look around, I'm so full of pride. But also, I just take a big breath because it's so gorgeous in here.
It's an artist's dream. The mineral resources, materials that are here is just amazing. I think, you know, just putting a face to who we are was quite an achievement. You know, for so long we knew what we were, but we didn't really show who we were.
Within the mental health sector, there's been a realisation that culturally appropriate spaces can have a positive effect on treatment. The Waitemata District Health Board was the first to build a facility that combines a kaupapa Māori approach with modern psychiatric medicine. Tāne Whakapiripiri is a forensic Māori mental health unit that's part of the Mason Clinic in Auckland. Every new patient who arrives at Tāne Whakapiripiri is first welcomed into the wharenui.
The majority of the patients in Mason Clinic are Maori. It has been demonstrated many times that when you bring them onto a marae, they become very quiet, tangi, compassionate. It was demonstrated one time that this particular guy was so wild. He was such a wild man. I said, oh, well, bring him to the marae. Oh, no, we can't do that, you know. He's under a very strong court order. He's not to be moved from the secure unit. I said, bring him. I'll be responsible for him being here on the marae. I said, trust me, you'll be all right. And you know, he came in like a lamb. He tangied all the way across the courtyard, and everybody saw the difference in him. He was so quiet, they couldn't imagine that that same guy, he was so horrific to look after, took a lot of people to constrain him.
Tāne Whakapiripiri provides an opportunity for people to rediscover their cultural backgrounds, as many of the patients or whaiora who come here have lost touch with their iwi connections. Its name, Tāne Whakapiripiri, depicts the generic Māori story of creation.
What we wanted to do was to create an environment that sort of captured the elements of Te Ao Māori. So a lot of the things we were out to achieve were explained in our whakairo outside on the whare nui.
See the elements out here, we have tamanui te rā and the hihi coming up falling, and tāpiri mātea with his hau.
Draws on the whiti o te rā, the sun, te hau o tāwhiri mātea, the wind, all the elements sort of filter through this whole environment.
Award-winning Māori architect Rewi Thompson was brought on by architectural company Monsell to help develop the conceptual framework for the design. His inspiration for the design was the traditional papakainga or village.
What you've got is a series of smaller whare that's connected by a common walkway. In a lot of ways, it's very similar to the marae, where you have a courtyard or a tia. You also have the veranda space or the pai, and then you also have an inner space as well. So primarily there's the staffing and their accommodation, and also whānau, their rooms. So the whole concept behind it is really to create a sort of a family, whanaungatanga sort of a setting.
There's also a really important scale going on here, which is really just a generous single story. How important was that for the development of this concept?
Oh, very important. I think for the whānau, that they had to be on the ground floor, in other words, in touch with the land. As we know, when we're not well, things are natural, they're very dear to us, you know, like stone, Mother Earth, trees, all things that are living. You know, architecture is in some way secondary to that. It's the open space, and being part of nature can have healing properties all by themselves. For all of us, water or waiora, it's universal to everyone, not just for Māori. And for me, it's like a living, you know, obviously a living soul.
You had some quite pressing security constraints on the design too, particularly incorporating, you know, obviously quite high fences, but also, you know, integrating them into the design.
I think an important part of making sure that it didn't look fortified was the landscaping itself, and that was done by obviously the landscape architects. Obviously there were security issues, but that wasn't to be the focus of this complex here. And one of the ideas is that we created a focus like the water here and the spiritual aspect of it, that then the ideas of security fences would in some ways disappear.
Tāne Whakapiripiri has been designed with Māori cultural practices and beliefs at its core, believing that this is the best way to aid the recovery and rehabilitation of the tangata whaiora.
We're quite unique in the fact that the staff, as well as those people who live here 24/7, have quite a unique relationship going on as well. The interaction between us is maybe unlike any other unit. As Māori, we address the elements of people.
People are exiting Tāne Whakapiri with a strong sense of cultural identity, a good understanding of their illness, and with a clear direction for their future pathways. And then I think if we can do that, I think we're achieving our goals. Tāne Whakapiri is simply the personification of a kaupapa Māori environment that shelters its people that enter it.
I'm pleased to hear that it's not only a model that's been looked at in New Zealand, but also overseas as well. One day there'll be papakainga everywhere.
The developments that are taking place in public buildings like Tāne Whakapiripiri give me hope. Hope that when it comes to public and iwi-funded projects, we're making huge headway. Some of our most innovative and creative Māori structures in recent years have been purpose-built educational environments. One of the more rewarding design projects I've been involved with in recent years is here at Ep13 College as part of the wider design team, to be able to integrate core Māori concepts into the master plan and ensure that the wharenui is located at the heart of the school was a really important opportunity as a designer. Ep13 College in South Auckland was opened in 2006. It's a school designed with the 21st century in mind and incorporates the belief that the school environment dramatically influences the experience and therefore achievement of its students. Well, Andrea, it's great to be back to see everything so established.
It's taken some years, and yeah, the planting's lovely now.
The integration of the rocks, it happened late, but it's become a key feature of the landscaping throughout the whole upper school.
Yeah, no, and also it serves dual purposes as pai, as places that our kids actually like to be on, and they do sort of create some symbolism around the atia for the whare.
And to end up with the whare in the middle of the heart of the school, I think that was a really important shift in the end.
Definitely. I mean, one of the philosophies for the foundation board was to ensure that we're seen as a bicultural school, and this is the heart of the school, not tucked down the back where it doesn't disturb anybody. And for all of our tauira, all of the students here, this is a learning tool, and they have to interact with it because it's right there in front of them, and they come around it and they walk past it and they're a part of it. One of the things I thought was really awesome was to see that it was a little bit different, to come into a 21st century school where you've got sort of that futuristic, you've still got the whare, the icon that it is, but you've actually got some thinking going into it about how does it tell our story, how does it tell the local story.
This design had to be reminiscent of, but not duplicating traditional wharenui structures.
I know that one of the original designs was to have glass from ceiling to floor, and I thought that was possibly not so good if you're sleeping in there at night, so we actually did half glass.
The fishbowl effect.
The fishbowl effect, that's right. And that very interesting peak there has worked quite well, I think.
Well, I guess it does give some shelter anyway.
Yeah, not from the rain, but yeah.
Metaphorical shelter.
Metaphoricals, that's it.
Like many of the buildings we've seen throughout the series, Alfriston College is providing a vision for the future. A truly Indigenous architectural language that distinguishes our buildings from those around the rest of the world can only be found here. The extensive renovation of the Māori Arts and Crafts Centre at Te Puia in Rotorua is, to my mind, an utterly modern and beautifully realised building that could have only been made in Aotearoa.
There are so many different dimensions that we can start to move in. We can go beneath the earth, we can go beyond the heavens, we can plug into the mythologies, there's imagery that we can draw on, so, and then we can begin to form our own conclusions about the environment. And of course, all of that here at Whakarerorewa is very present. I wanted to finish up with something that would enable me to represent a culture that I already stand in awe of. And I wanted other people, strangers to our culture, to walk into this space and also feel that sense of awe, because I'm continually captured by it.
Karen's approach to the development of the design concepts was all about consultation and absorbing the influences of the people and the place in which he was working.
I credit a very trusting approach on the part of the directors right from the beginning, and the way they allowed us to engage almost before any design work got underway with a few key figures, and I think this is a really important part of our Maori process, kaumātua, tohunga, and some of the figures behind Te Puia, the guides and so on. So out of that, we got some great stories, and we had an opportunity to fully understand the history.
Welcome here to Rotorua, and of course to Te Puia. We're a Māori cultural experience, and that experience is going to be shared with myself and my family through the entertainment, singing, dancing, games, haka, and of course the delicious food we call hangi, and the stories of the Māori people.
Te Kepa was one of the tohunga, since passed away before the project was finished. What was wonderful about Te Kepa is he kept referring us back to mystical aspects of the culture. And it manifests here. All of this is about connection between Papa and Rangi and the Atua who sit in the middle of that, the way we're guided in the way we live in the world today by this representation of figures, Tawhiri Mātea, Tangaroa and so on, who are all arrayed around this space. At the moment, I think in our practices around architecture, there's a kind of distant curiosity. Oh yeah, okay, so that's what it's about. But once you've engaged at that level, it's like, okay, now I'll go away with that information and I'll take it somewhere else and I'll play with it. Whereas I think that the stage beyond that, which is what I'm looking forward to, is one where it's owned, as if it's an indelible part of who we are and the way that we think about ourselves.
Like the designers of old, Karen specialises in a hands-on creative approach. His skills were in demand when Māori television were looking for a designer who could redesign an existing building and create an environment that was distinctively Māori. So this was a really important design opportunity.
Yeah, it was for me. It gave me the chance to plug into a whole lot of different pieces of Maori imagery that I wanted to draw together in one project, and this was the perfect opportunity.
So what was your most important driver in the design process?
That it would be understood by Maori. I don't really care about anybody else. It's super important to me that anybody who came to this facility from within the culture would recognise immediately some of the imagery that we've set up, so that they'd be relating to the space as if they owned it. And then secondly, whakatauki. The team had given a lot of consideration to what they would use to reinforce the proposition around the importance of te reo. But once we had it, it was like, wow, let's use te reo sculpturally to take the message through the building. And it's a beautiful message, of course, hutia te rito o te harakeke. If you take the central stem out of the flax, how will the bellbird speak? It says everything about what Maori television was trying to achieve with this project.
So it's a really appropriate, having an electronic or digital tahuhu to really encapsulate what happens here.
Absolutely. We wanted the building to speak about Maori's grasp of current and new technologies, and the fact that we were able to work with them and yet combine them with the traditional aspects of our culture, like this potahu sitting at the beginning here.
So the tukutuku panel is a real case in point with using those contemporary materials within a familiar Māori art form.
Yeah, we had to have a tukutuku panel, and there is the work of about 10, up to 10 Maori raranga artists in that panel.
So this is the termination of the tahu here.
Yeah, this is so in typical Maori fashion. You've got to use a bit of imagination to see how this end connects with the other end of the tahu as it passes through the studio. But from my point of view, it enlivens the notion that it's, in all activity that's going on there, it's always working to inform that creative process.
So this is the nerve centre of the whole facility?
Yeah, all these corridors lead into the space. People have the opportunity, as you can see, where there's a passage, traffic moving in and out of here all the time. So that thing about what goes on in our culture, kanohi ki te kanohi, people are acknowledging and recognising each other all the time. As you come up the stairs and enter this space where the whakatauki begins to announce itself, again, this proposition about taking the reo out to the world is always influencing what goes on around that table.
In terms of the future of projects like this, it really has been informative as to how we can go about these projects, integrating the artistic dimension with the architecture, with the interior design.
Yeah, I think we've shown that we have the expertise at those levels where it's now called upon to deliver a result like this. And looking as we have among our own professionals to start to bring their skills to projects like this is really the next level in the game for us.
As bridges between art and architecture, designers like Karen Wilson are part of the way forward. They come with the stories and concepts of the past, but with a desire to reinterpret and create a new aesthetic that's relevant for the 21st century. Around the country, there are many new and exciting examples of Māori architecture. We set off in search of Māori architecture, and we've covered the length of the country discovering a diverse range of Whare Māori. Where to from here? There's a rich history of Whare Māori to draw on, and there's the potential to take some of these ideas and design concepts into the future, reinterpreting them in new and exciting ways. In the same way that our most important building, the wharenui, signifies and immortalises our past and hopes for the future, the very design of our structure says something about who we are, what's important to us, and where we are going. My challenge is, let's keep creating architecture that continues to recognise that Māori design principles can enrich environments for all New Zealanders.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.